Hello and welcome. I'm Uncle Badger and this will be part 2 of my mystical book hoard. Yes, we're going to look into some books that I'm particularly interested in, but first I'm going to introduce someone that was a gift to me. They've been looking over the books over the past several days. Might be familiar to those that have watched my first video, the unboxing, several months ago, November last. He came in that box. Now he's either going to be Barry the Wizard or Tim the Enchanter. Well, for the course of the next several videos he's going to be looking after the books anyway. Off you go. There we go. Anyway, here we go. On with the books. I've got a brief stack here of books with these ones here to start off with. I have volume 1. Volume 1 of Le Morte d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory, and volume 2. Both they look into some King Arthur's myths. I think they're meant to be one of the first actual recordings of the myths, but they're from a Christian perspective in, was it 1485, so it's pretty late on after King Arthur was meant to have been alive, about 1,000 years. 1,000 years after, but yeah, there we go. There is also that is the Winchester manuscript version, the same set of myths. Yeah, I'm quite interested in the Arthurian legends. There's quite a lot in them. Yeah, it's from him journeying through around about Wales, Cornwall and places like that, whether it was at Tintagel. I think it's the jury's still out on that. The castle, the remains of the castle that's there now, is still considerably later than St Arthur's lifetime, but St Arthur? King Arthur. Though sometimes he seems to be treated like a saint, but yeah, I think the remains of the castle that's at Tintagel was it something like 12th or 13th century, I think, so even that's quite late. But what was it? Gratian de Troyes. Can't pronounce his first name, but Arthurian romances. So yeah, it's they're quite interesting. There's quite a lot of sort of psychological stuff in them, bit them being metaphors and myths to help sort of come to terms with different aspects of mythology and what people get up to. It's it's Lancelot having an affair with Guinevere and stuff, and yeah, one of the myths that I've always been intrigued in is the Fisher King, the Fisher King. There are 2 versions of that I know of. There's one where the king had lost his bits and had become the Fisher King, and there's another one where he'd actually been burnt while grasping at the salmon of knowledge. But either way, he's been injured to a point where he's very remorseful, like he feels like he's lost out. And there's all this stuff about the Holy Grail. It's probably a metaphor for losing out on the quest for the Holy Grail, which has a lot to do with love. So maybe it's a metaphor for him feeling generally unloved, or not being able to feel love, actual deep love. So that's quite interesting. But there seem to be several different versions. There's a Welsh version where there is the Fisher King is actually a Viking warrior. Ties in with the ideas of the Black Knight as well. Might even be a guardian that one needs to defeat before going on a journey to study magic. Might even be an early metaphor for dealing with one's shadow self, doing shadow work to fully come to terms with the shadow. You can then proceed and do a lot of the major work. Then you'll start cluing on to how to do things properly, and things will, results will be shown then. So that's quite curious. I've also seen references to the Fisher King, and it being an analogy to the kingfisher bird. There apparently were Fisher Kings who had betrayed their chivalric oaths, and they'd because they couldn't act like a man, they lost their manhood, sacrificed their knighthood, and would forever sit fishing by the river. But it being cross-referenced with the kingfisher, there's something to do with it piercing the level of the water and witnessing the world under the water level as well as above. Sort of there being a witness to the idea of above and below. So water seems to play quite a very important role in a lot of magic and a lot of religions. Baptism and christenings being quite important to Christians. Well, quite important, very. But water being a metaphor for a number of other things. The weave and weft of how energy moves, how fluid it is. So that's always quite curious. So whether a kingfisher or a fisher king might be a metaphor for someone who can go between both of those worlds, I'm not sure. Comment below if you've any clues or would like to talk more about it. And onwards, here we go, the next one. Early Irish myths and sagas. This one, I wanted to try and get a lot of as many of the four cycles of Irish myths as I can, and some of the volumes were a bit confusing because there's the mythical cycle, there's the Ulster cycle, the Fenian cycle. I think it's the Fenian cycle. I might be wrong, comment below. And there's the historical cycle, which is more sort of first millennia history, kings and queens and the history to do with them and stuff. But the Ulster cycle deals a lot with one of my favourite heroes, Cuchulainn, and I don't think I'm pronouncing that properly either. I've heard it a Cuchulainn, Chuchulainn, Chuchulainn, Cuchulainn. A few different pronunciations. Out of those I might not even have pronounced it properly even then. But onwards. There we go. The Mabygonian, Welsh myths. There's a Welsh version of Merlin as well. That's quite interesting. I'm getting into Welsh mythology and wanting to cross-reference some stuff from the books I've just shown you with Druidism and Arthurian legends. I think there's quite a bit there, and a lot of them yeah, a lot of them would have inspired the others and been passed forward into the Christianised Thomas Malory, Le Morte d'Arthur. So yeah, I think there's a number of hidden things in there that could be worth looking into. And the Welsh version of Merlin, I think his version is Meryd Wilt, and I think his origin story, before going to live in the woods after a very, very brutal battle where all his friends and family died, where he possibly got PTSD, he shares some of the origins with apparently Finn McCool, and being originally an apprentice to Ceridwen. Yeah. But here we go. Here we go. The Tane. Oh, some of the books have fallen over. Oh yeah. There we go. This is a Penguin Deluxe edition. The Sagas of Iceland. It's got sort of a glossy. You can just see some of the glossy pattern show up on there, overlaid over the top. But yeah, this is some kind of sort of roughened paper. I like this volume, and it's yeah, it's there's I think in here it's spelt the Laxadal, but I've heard it also referred to as the Laxdæla, and yeah, that's about the founding of Iceland, and yeah, that's a very interesting one. And I think this has got, one moment, I think this has got the legend of, is it, maybe not. I was thinking Egil's Skallagrim's, sorry, Egil Skallagrim. Thought it had the legend of him in it. Perhaps I'm wrong. He's a pretty cool hero. Well, there we go. Next set of books. This is a newish published book, Baldur's Magic, Power of Scandinavian Shamanism, Norse Shamanism. Yeah, there's meditative exercises and things like that in here. Powers of ecstatic and hypnotic trance, Nordic postures, Era of the Mother Earth, Lost Eda of the Vanir. Yeah, it goes on. Teachings of the Vanir. Yeah, it's quite interesting if you're sort of wanting to do meditations to do with Norse shamanism. I think I got this in regards to wanting to look into some of the Sami shamanry of Finland and Estonia. I think this might cover it, touch on it briefly, but yeah, not very much. It's still interesting, mind. The Clan of the Goddess. I think that's mainly for the point of view of that's mainly for Celtic wisdom and ritual for women. There we are. C.C. Brodwin, Brondwin. Yeah, there was one of my favourite YouTubers was talking about nematons and having a private space on the astral plane, and they did a meditation to find it or regain it, or generally become re-familiar with it. sort of a safe space on the astral plane, and that was read from this book, and I was quite impressed by the meditation and stuff from it, so immediately got the book. Even if I'm of a different sex to who it's intended for, always some good information to be got. A word about your first shape-shifting spell. Yes, quite a bit about the nemeton. Nemeton. Yeah. Revealing the Green Man. Mark Ollie. Yeah, this is one of the Moon books. They do sort of very good beginner's guides to things, with quite a large, like, introductory things to shamanism. I'll come to some more Moon books later, but yeah, this generally covers how the Green Man has been covered through myths and legends that we know of so far, and throughout history. Forest chapels and the golden thread. Printing killed the mythological star. Jack in the Green, 50 Shades of Green, not grey. 50 Shades of Greyhound. Not suitable for children. Stupid joke, yeah. Well, yeah, this is done by anyone interested in chaos magic. Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine. He did quite a 3, maybe 4 books about chaos magic in the early 90s. Apparently people keep asking him about chaos magic, and he says, I don't keep in with the scene anymore, I got bored with it after writing the books. But he's still considered an authority on it even today, 25 years on. If you're interested in chaos magic, worth a buy. There are some interviews by Phil Hine, and he's quite a sort of amenable, affable sort of man. Another name to look for if you're interested in chaos magic is Peter Carroll, and he did Liber Null, which is another well-regarded text for starting out in that. Yes, Peter Carroll did a review on the back. Author of Liber Chaos and Cyber Magic. Also a review by Stephen Moore. We'll get on into him. I've got a book by him. We'll get on to him in probably next episode. Very good friends with Alan Moore, no relation. Almost a catchphrase of his when talking about Steve Moore. But yeah, Tom Bombadil by J.R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, he's The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. This is quite a sturdy little book. It's several sort of poems and little stories about him. Probably one of the most interesting, if overlooked, characters from The Lord of the Rings. It's thought Tom Bombadil was actually Tolkien putting himself into the book as like an observer sort of thing, and I think he started out as a sort of character that he'd tell stories about for his son Christopher. And then he sort of wrote him into The Lord of the Rings. And another book by Mr. Alistair Crowley, The Great Beast, Moonchild, This is quite interesting. There's stuff in here about how to consider sort of Crowley trying to explain to the main character about the way the universe is structured, that we are excluding time as a fourth dimension, we are three-dimensional beings. As we go forwards and back, side to side, up and down. Angels have an extra dimension, and it sort of all unfolds. I think I mentioned Alan Moore touching on that in my previous video, but it's just a different way of looking at that, and yeah, it's stuck in my mind. There we go. I have Runic Lore and Legend, Weird Staves of Old Northumbria, Nigel Pennick. That's replacing my hand. Nigel Pennick is very well regarded. He's done several things on witchcraft and a lot of stuff on runes. I've heard him recommended by loads and loads of people. He covers quite a lot of the old sources inside, and he's got a good bibliography, several pages and stuff like that. Ravenland Iron, the ritual suicide of Earl Seward. Runes in Magic and Encryption. But this one it covers a later Futhuk to the Elder Futhuk, which is the most common runes available, or most commonly made, is the Elder Futhuk. But there are other runic alphabets. There's the Younger Futhuk, the Anglo-Saxon Futhuk, the Icelandic Futhuk, and the Northumbrian. This is probably one of the later ones, and apparently they cross over. The Northumbrian runes have a link, a crossover with the Ogham runes of Ireland, which is curious. I think that's mainly because Ogham runes were found at Whitby in a time and presumably they were written about the time of the Whitby Synod, when St Augustine came across to Christianise England. So it's thought that they mixed around that sort of time. Perhaps should have shown this a little earlier, but Caroline Larrington, The Land of the Green Man. Yes, this one goes into, much like the previous Green Man book, it sort of goes into how the Green Man has been regarded over history and throughout myths and legends. Celebrated new history, fairies, elves and goblins tread purposefully, sometimes maligning. They go across an airy landscape filled with those other fantastical beings. This is a book that will captivate all those who long for a wild place, the mountains and chasms where giants lie in wait. Yeah, I do rather like the idea of the Green Man. The whole sort of mythology and how it's shared across Europe, and might even be versions in other cultures. I'd be curious. I've got a little pan pendant. Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, but I also have the Book of Iceland, the Icelandic Book of Futhuk. This covers the Icelandic Futhuk. I showed you the Sorcerer's Creed sorcerers, screed in the previous episode. This is done by the same company, the Icelandic Magic Company, and this, yeah, it's quite expensive, but this one cross-references the Icelandic Fuduk with, one moment, I think with the Elder Fuduk, and also I think with the Younger Fuduk, yes, the Younger Fuduk. So you have all three, the Elder, Younger and Icelandic Fuduk in this book. Each rune gets roughly that amount of information. Now this is by a small publishing house, but one of my favourites, the lady that runs it and who's also one of the authors, she's very knowledgeable, does a lot of research. She has a load of a big bibliography and index and stuff in the back, and shows her sources and things. But she has a YouTube channel, which is her author name, Tillian Penry. She has a YouTube channel, and the publisher, Wolf and Howl Press. Not sure that can show up, it's just the logo, but yeah, Wolf and Howl Press, Tillian Penry. That's about not magic. Yeah, it was only after I got this that I found out that there had been a patron saint who guarded people against not magic. That not magic was taken that seriously that there was a patron saint against them, which I thought was curious. And it's, well, you can make it out of a knot out of anything. I could knot my hair, my scarf, one of the cords on there. I could probably go with the feathers behind me, loose thread on a cuff, shoelace. You know, you can put knots in loads of stuff. The next book of hers, Working with the Anglo-Saxon Runes by Tillian Penry, by Wolf and Howl Press again. Yeah, I like her work a lot. Yeah, each rune in here is 1, 2, 3, about 4 pages worth of information on each rune. I think there were 27 runes in this Fuduk. The Northumbrian had 33, the Elder Fuduk. If you include the Weird rune, which is a newer edition, there are 25 in the Elder Fuduk. I covered this guy briefly in the previous episode with his Valis and transmigration. Yeah, transmigration, not transmutation. Transmigration of Timothy Archer. Philip K. Dick started writing this big book. I think that's the date he started researching it. He'd had an experience where there was a pink beam of light that beamed into his head, a lot of very, very specific knowledge about how his son was very, very ill. And he took his son to the hospital and said, look, do these specific tests on the specific part of the brain, you'll find a specific thing. How you operate is this specific way. And it was right, apparently, and I find it a bit hard to believe, but then why would it have inspired him to write something that thick, as well as a trilogy of novels? Yeah, he was convinced by it. So, yeah, he was convinced by it. Who's to doubt him? He thought it was real. Why shouldn't it be? Yeah, there are a lot stranger things that show up to be true as well, that people can actually see and stuff. Yeah, there we go. And again, J.R.R. Tolkien, The Silmarillion. This is quite a new edition. What's it say underneath? Edited by Christopher Tolkien. So you have that being a family effort. Yes, the myths creating Middle Earth, from the creation myth to everything else. Yeah, there's the High Elven group of Love and Light, I think. They're a curious group. I quite like them. I'm intrigued by them. And I know I've butchered the name. If you, hopefully I'll remember. In the description or the comment, I'll put a link to the groups in the description or the comment. Hopefully, or if you're particularly interested, leave a comment, remind me. Yeah, because it's thought that Tolkien had channeled a lot of his work. Well, he used a lot of Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Christian mythology and history and stuff to make these. He'd gone through university so far, he was teaching all of that. So and it's sort of, I know a lot of authors, they write they so vividly picture their worlds and characters and write so rapidly that they're basically in like a shamanic trance anyway. So whether they accidentally channel their work purposefully or something, it's a curious idea. Anyway, also showing that Tolkien was an Anglo-Saxon scholar. His translation of Beowulf and the Selic spell. This has got a lot of loads of footnotes and things. Wiglaf spake many a right fitting word, saying to his comrades, for heavy was his heart, I do not forget the time where we took our mead in the hall of revelry. We vowed to our master, who gave us these precious things, that we would repay him for that raiment of warriors, the helmets and stout swords. Yeah. And here we go. Alright, I'll do these two first. Now, this one, connected with my interest in Arthurian legends and Irish and Welsh myths, I'm looking into Druidry a bit. This one, I got it. It seemed to be highly recommended before I bought it, and then after I bought it, I'd seen several people in a very well populated Druid group on Facebook reckon this wasn't very good at all. They seem to have gone from one extreme to the other. I've not started going through this book, but it's worth. I think the general idea was read it, make up your own mind. But this does advise at one point that you can eat mistletoe berries. Don't, they're poisonous, you'll die. Change whatever working to include something different that won't kill you. Was it Terry Pratchett saying, all mushrooms are edible, some are only edible once. Yes. I've seen a few readings of this book online as well. A couple of chapters read, Yeah, there we go. Jake Richards, Backwards Witchcraft. That's to do with Appalachian Mountains. Jake Richards grew up in that area and had learnt several things and spoken to many people. So he's got sort of first-hand knowledge of that sort of area. Yeah, that's I've seen many reviews of that. It's quite a new book, about 6 months old, roughly, and it's been well received by quite a lot of people. So that's probably quite an interesting book for general witchcraft. I know in the Appalachian Mountains that they seem to have, because there are so many isolated communities, they seem to have preserved a number of the old ways. That probably would have predated the Industrial Revolution. That probably would have been brought across in the 16 and 1700s. So been brought across by the English. I know in the southern regions of the Appalachians, stuff had risen up and gone northwards, and there are several voodoo and hoodoo practices that are preserved there as well. Very mountainous region. Yeah, it's people can stay isolated in there. Right, here we go. This is the last 3 for this video. There will be. Moon Spells by Diane Alquist. Yeah, it's doesn't. Oh, pardon me. Bit burpy. Pardon me. Yeah, it's. I don't think it necessarily goes into teaching astrology, but there's a lot of stuff to go by. There's magical enhancements, food and beverage, clothing, magical tools, lunar calendar. It's a collection of spells. And there's fertility, easy childbirth and love for women only, fathering and love for men, divine messages, spells for moon practices. And penultimate one, Moonology by Yasmin Boland. She's apparently got a tarot deck that is related to this book, Moonology by Yasmin Boland. Yeah, and it's this is similar sort of thing. Live consciously with the daily moon, working with the magic of the full moon. How the zodiac signs flavour the new moon. Yeah, it's more sort of a general how to use the moon in spirituality and stuff. And the last book for tonight, here we go, is Selene by Steve Moore, posthumously published, and it has foreword by the 2 people that were the executors of his will, and that's Bob Rickard, who published, edited rather, and helped set up the Fortean Times until quite recently. Yeah, helped set it up and worked there until quite recently. The Fortean Times, and also it has his other executor doing a foreword, Alan Moore, no relation, but Selene by Steve Moore. Selene is one of the moon goddesses, along with Vu, V-U-U, that's the Finnish moon and moon goddess. But if I'm remembering rightly, Steve Moore had an experience, if I'm remembering rightly, I'd have to check it up, I could be wrong, He had an experience where he actually managed to manifest Selene, and she was to him real, as in real. And Steve Moore was talking to Alan Moore, saying, "I've conjured her. She's here. She's sat next to me now." Alan was doubtful, but oh, says Steve, "come round and meet her." Okay then, in his sort of gruff Northampton accent. And he goes round and goes in, and there's Selene in the sort of more ethereal sort of almost ghost solid sat on his lap, and she's whispering in Steve Moore's ear, "Say hello from me to Alan." And Alan sits down as well, and she sits next to him, and he's sort of, "Oh, you were telling the truth. Oh." But yeah, it's quite curious. But with this book, it goes into sort of the metaphoric representations of the moon goddess also seem to underlie similar changes, each new century reinventing her in its own image. For Hesiod, she was a distant figure in the celestial pantheon. To Keats, she was an intimate muse. Selene's reoccurring role in music, literature and song is a powerful testament to our continuing fascination with her myth. Well, anyway, that's the last book for this episode. Yes. So, for now, I'll wish you all good health and goodbye.